Okay, welcome to this experimental talk. Experimental because I submitted a talk that I had no clue about before I submitted it. Sometimes I do that to force myself to learn new stuff. There's nothing like a deadline making you do new stuff. The problem is if then things come up taking away the time that you needed to prepare, it gets a little stressful. About me, I'm working for Airbus Cybersecurity. Have been doing network analysis and forensics for quite a while. Some of you know maybe NetX-Ray. That's probably the thing most people don't know, but Sniffer Pro distributed ClearSight Ethereal and everything, so for quite some time. Actually, the person who made me teach Ethereal classes is actually here at SharkFest for this time, so if you don't like me presenting this kind of thing, he's to blame. I'm the creator of something called Wrangler. We will look at that because it is one of the things that few people know about, and there's of course some people who already know it and might get annoyed by me showing it once again, but if I only get one person to say, okay, didn't know about this one, this is cool, then this talk has served its purpose, and that goes for the other tools as well. I also write a blog. It's called blog.packetfoo.com. Who's ever read that before? Like a few of you, okay. There's a reason maybe to read that for all the others now, because I was running in so much trouble in preparation of this talk that I had to write a blog post about how to install one of the things that I did, mostly because I needed a guideline for myself to reinstall it over and over again because it kept breaking down, and in the end I could just do my own to-do list that I have in the blog post and get it installed. So if you want to look at it, it's there now. All right, usual suspects. I think the usual suspects are quite clear. I'm going to list them. Well, TCP dump, yeah, that's quite obvious. Everybody knows TCP dump, I think. Wireshark, yeah, we're here because of it, so everybody knows that too. T-Shark, maybe not so many people, but it's the command line version, so to speak, of Wireshark. If you never used it, we use it quite a lot, me and my colleagues, because you can script it and you can do a lot of cool things with it because you can automate, and it's quite powerful. And then there's commercial tools, and I'm not going into them, and there's a ton more. I didn't have enough space on the slide to put them all there, but I needed to make a couple of people happy by seeing their products there, so that's why. All right. Now the lineup of unusual suspects is much more interesting, and you may have heard of some of them before, but I'm not going to do any more slides. I'm going to live demo them instead, which is much more fun because you can watch me fail or maybe succeed, we will see. And then one by one you will get to know them, and I have recap slides at the end, basically telling you what I think what they're good for and what they're not good for, or if they're good for anything at all. So I think we're just jumping into it and checking them out. Any questions so far? Anybody confused yet? No? Okay. All right. So the first one, I don't know what that is, but I hope it will resync soon. It's probably because I'm not on the resolution.
It was working.
So. Yeah, I think it's, I probably need to reduce my screen size. It was 1280 by 800, I think. Let's see. Angelo, anything? Yep. Come on. Resizing my screen to full HD again. We can try and see what happens. Oops. So, let's do that in here. By the way, if you wonder why I'm having my name on my chest, that's because Lundy, my colleague, brought it back for me from Canada, and I have to wear it, of course, so that you know who I am. All right, so the first one is something called Network Miner. Who has heard of Network Miner before? A couple of you. Okay, the others haven't, so I have to show it because not all of you know them or know it. No, not Netgate. NetResec. This is one of two tools that a Swedish guy is writing. He used to work for the Swedish army and then started his own business. This thing is called Network Miner, and I'm looking at it because there is a free edition, which can do quite a lot of things already. Of course, there's a professional version that can do more. The one thing that annoys me personally quite a lot is that pcap-ng is only supported in the Pro version. But that's because he doesn't like the pcap-ng file format, and I think that's why it's only in the Pro version. So if we get that here, we can download it right away without, I already have downloaded it before, so I can cancel that one. Let's go to downloads and Network Miner. There's actually an interesting story about Network Miner. A friend of mine, Eddie, who's also presenting here, and me, we were at DEF CON in Las Vegas. I don't know if you know about DEF CON, but DEF CON is like the hacker playground with at least 12,000 up to 25,000 crazy people in the meantime, and they're having packet challenges where you can do like forensic tasks and capture the flag things and stuff like this. And we were joining in on the packet capture challenge, of course, because we know Wireshark, right? So we went there, and first of all, I was surprised there were people doing introductory classes on how to read packets. And if you have to see a tutorial on how to read packets, chances are that you're not going to win the packet challenge, because you're not going to learn in one tutorial how to do that, right? So we were coming in, we were like half a day late already, and said, well, doesn't matter, we are Wireshark gurus, we know everything, we're going to be so much faster than everybody else here. And we weren't. And the reason for that was that Wireshark is a great tool, but not for everything. And after like 2 hours of fighting with Wireshark and trying to extract stuff, because that's what you're mostly going to do, trying to extract pictures, emails, chats, whatever, I was like, okay, discard the Wireshark thing, I'm going to use Network Miner. And I used that one instead. So let's put it on the desktop. The one important thing about Network Miner is I'm going to unpack it to my desktop. In the free version, it will extract all the files into a folder called assembled files. So if you copy this tool and the substructure folder into your program files on Windows, it will not work because you're not allowed to write into the program files directory path anymore. So you need to put it somewhere where you can write files. I talked to Eric about it, that's the guy who writes it, and he said, well, he usually puts it in his documents folder. The advantage of the Pro version is it's configurable, so in the Pro version you can tell it to extract to some other path, but not in the free version. Yeah, so you can still use it, but of course it's only working on those writable paths that way. So if we start it, it looks like this. It can do live captures from cards, which I don't care about. I could do it, but I don't want to. What I want to do is add a capture file, and I think I don't have any kind of pcap file. I only have pcap-ng files, which means I have a problem, right? So let's just check it out. Where's my demo? My traces folder is here. Demo, suspects, file set. And you can tell there's no file there, which isn't true because it's just not looking for all files, it's looking for pcap files, not pcap-ng. If I change the selector, it will work, but I cannot load them. So what I have to do first is convert, right? Who knows how to convert pcap-ng to pcap? Okay, who knows how to do that without Wireshark? Okay, Sake does, great. at least one person not...
Can the other side, the position, direction also pcap-ng?
Yeah, you can convert in both directions. I will show you how to do that right now. So let's go to the demo folder. There's a suspects folder and there's a file set. Is that big enough, the font, or should I increase it?
A little bit increasing, please.
Okay, since you're in the third row, I will, because if the last row tells me it's too small, I'm like, come on, get closer. Let's make it bigger then. Like 28. 28 should be good enough. Like this? Okay. So there's one tool, CLI tool, that is called EditCap. Maybe you heard of it. It can do a ton of things. What I'm going to do with it is convert the file. That means EditCap, and there's a parameter called uppercase F. If I only put in uppercase F as a parameter, it will print a list of all the formats it can write. So let's do that, and you'll see there's quite a lot. Little word of warning, not all formats can be converted into every other format, but most formats you can convert. And what I need right now is to go from pcap-ng to pcap. That is down here. So it would be editcap minus F, pcap. Also libpcap would work normally. So now I'm using my trace file and I write it into a new trace file. The only difference between the two file names right now is that I'm converting from pcap-ng to pcap, so I just deleted two characters at the end. And I'm having a new pcap file, which shows up here right now. That's the new one that I just wrote. You can see it's the 31st of October 2018. By the way, this is one thing that annoys me a great deal because I want the file timestamp to be the file timestamp of the original file time, because very often you're looking at packets caused by, or by the date that they were recorded because you were looking for something specific. I wrote a little tool that will fix the date for you if you want to, and that's called pcap touch. And pcap touch just opens the file, looks at the first frame timestamp, and applies the date and time to the file. So you can fix them real quick. If you want to, I can show that to you later. So let's open this one in the network miner. And you can see it starts finding stuff. There's files, images, DNS, parameters, tons of things. It's not the fastest tool in the world. And I was having discussions with Eric about that, and he was like, yeah, it can't be made faster. Well, I'm already writing a couple of tools, and my day only has 24 hours, so right now I can't prove him wrong. Maybe in the future somewhere. The first thing that you need to write for that is a TCP reassembly engine, which is a nightmare in itself. It's so bad that I haven't even dared yet to do that, but I will have to for my other tools. So, and you can't even stop it. Yeah? So it's like taking a long time now. We can wait for it to finish, but let's just see what happens if we kill it this way. I think it's probably going to be mad at me. No, it's just stopped. So there's a lot of things here that you can already see. It will tell you a lot of details about the IPs it found. It will try to determine what operating system is running on this thing. Well, basically, this is what forensic people would be interested in. We as network analysts troubleshooting something may not be that interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah, but for forensics, this is quite nice, which is why I put on the topic of my talk also the forensic angle. It will pull files from this thing that you can just then open. There's images, and well, whatever you do in Wireshark, it's not going to be as comfortable as this one because it's a lot of more work that nobody has put into Wireshark yet, and maybe it doesn't make even sense to put it in there. Credentials, well, the credential stuff from my point of view is trying to find something that looks like credentials, so mostly it's going to be cookies and stuff like that. These are traces that are real. You can tell that the server is 81.209, 179, 132. That is in my personal hosting range, but this trace is from 2014, and this project Verkehrsmittelvergleich.de doesn't exist anymore, at least not in my servers. So I'm happy to show this without anonymization. Otherwise I would have to anonymize it, but I think 4 years later on a page that is good for finding travel connections, well, this bus or train is gone for 4 years now. So if you want to use the cookie to get it, it won't help you. All right, then there's sessions. There's also some things here. I don't think there's something interesting in this. There's DNS. You can see the queries and answers. As I already said, this is mostly interesting for forensic people that are looking for specific key points of communication. And then there's parameters, which is even worse. I think we have 25,000 of them or something. So if you got the time, throw your stuff into there. For a challenge, it's pretty nice because in a challenge, they usually give you a couple of megabytes and it's like this quick. What I tried to load right now were 250 megabytes. And if you do that, it's going to take a while. But I mean, if you use it and if you find a bug, Eric will give you one of his pcap or it didn't matter or it didn't happen t-shirts. So there's another reason to use it, right? So for me, Network Miner is quite nice, but you should know when to use it. And normally, if you're troubleshooting, that's not the tool for you. Yeah, it's more like if you need to pull stuff from a trace, and of course, if it's not encrypted. Yeah, encryption is going to be a nightmare for a lot of tools that we're going to look at, because they're all like, hey, I can reconstruct stuff for you, and then the internet says, yeah, but I'm encrypted now. So a lot of the things that used to work fine in these tools is going to go away at some point in time. And then we will see how much they can adapt to that and which ones of them will not be able to tell you anything more. I mean, HTTPS is quite well available right now, so pulling stuff from HTTP is getting less and less. I mean, when I'm doing demos, I'm almost having problems now to find HTTP web pages that I can show. So that is a little problem here. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could also run a live capture with this thing, but usually what I want to do is throw stuff in there that are already captured somewhere else. That goes for all the other tools as well, by the way. I'm somebody who's capturing with dedicated capture hardware and then transporting my findings or my files to an analysis station like this and then just run it there. Okay, so, but if you want to do live capture, you could. So Network Miner, great tool. By the way, if you want to buy it, it's $900, which is not that bad. It can do a lot more things like detecting protocols that are running on non-standard ports. So if somebody is using like, I don't know, SMTP on port 3050, it will be able to tell you that it's there and that it's quite uncommon, and a lot of other things like GeoIP stuff and whatnot. So he has as you have seen on the download page, there's a list of features that you can see, and well, there's a lot of different or additional things that you can use. And it's pcap capable, so maybe even that may be an interesting thing. Because for me, I don't know for you how big your traces usually are. I run into sometimes a terabyte or 4 of pcaps. If you have to convert them first to pcap from pcap to pcap, first of all, this tool is not going to load that. Second of all, the converting will take time and disk space. So you need twice the disk space, and it takes like half a night to convert them. I want tools that are native to pcap as much as possible. So converting and copying stuff is just boring. All right, so that was my first suspect. The second suspect is something called Security Onion. Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah, the question is, can I configure Network Miner to extract only the stuff that I'm interested in, like only pictures, only parameters? Not as far as I know, but I haven't seen the pro version yet. So maybe it's configurable in there, but not in the free version. Yeah. If you're interested in that thing, Eric, he's a very nice guy. He's always interested in making his stuff better. So just send him a feature request, and I'm pretty sure he will be able to do that, because from the looks of it, that can't be a big problem to do that. Right? It's just leaving out some of the stuff. And by the way, as far as I remember, the free version is open source, so you could even just comment out the stuff that you don't want, probably. Yeah, it's written, as far as I know, in .NET or C#, so you could do that. All right, so second thing, Security Onion. Who has heard of Security Onion before? A few of you. Once again, this is more like in the range of security tools. Security Onion is a live Linux CD that you can install. And the cool thing about Security Onion is that it has a ton of tools pre-installed, and it's mostly focused on network security monitoring, also known as IDS. IPS, maybe, but it's more like IDS. I have one running in my data center, so what we're doing right now is I'm going to connect to it from here back to Germany. If you look at it, you can already see that there's a couple of tools available. First of all, CyberChef. I don't know if anybody ever seen CyberChef. It's a tool by the GCHQ. Quite nice if you need to reverse engineer stuff, because if you run it, it's basically a collection of tools helping you with stuff that you would otherwise have to do manually. It takes a while to load because it's only client side, but if it's there, it's quite helpful, because you can do a ton of things like encryption and coding. You can convert from base64, from hex, from hex dump. I use it sometimes to try compression stuff. If you have something that you want to look at and it's in a weird format, very often CyberChef just has the tool for that to decode it for you. Yeah, and that is something that I have on one of my pages for my colleagues just to use if they need to convert something. And that's in Security Onion, like a small tool, very helpful. So the most important things here are Squirt and Kibana. Kibana is the newer thing that they use now for looking at network security monitoring related events. I'm going to start with Squirt, or however that is pronounced. I have to log in. This thing is live monitoring the traffic on my data center installation. So what we're seeing here is real stuff. And you can see that it's giving you all the hits on patterns that it found. So there's some web server 403 forbidden. Funny for me is this one, ET policy protocol 41. That is something where Johannes is like, hey, I know this one, this is IPv6. If you're transporting IPv6 over an IPv4 tunnel, in my case, this is a tunnel broker Hurricane Electric thing. Well, in the default rules, Snort, in this case, doesn't like that because it's like a tunneling mechanism that could be used for data exfiltration. So what they do here is telling you, hey, there's an IPv6 tunnel running. Yeah? What I would do normally now is disable this rule and tell it to ignore that stuff. But for this demonstration, I just run it in the default set. If we're looking at that on the further things, there's some possible SQL injection attempt where you can see that somebody is trying to inject something in a query string. Here you have the rule. If you've ever seen Snort, you will see that there's some patterns here somewhere where it says if I find a select statement in the URI or the URL with a from content, and then it will just say, well, what is a select statement doing in my URL, and will notify you of a potential attempt to do something bad. In this case, the analyst would look at that thing in greater detail. Security Onion in the background is running a capture process that writes everything to disk. So you have all the pcaps that these are based on our on disk, so we could extract that stuff from there. And then you can check out what somebody's doing. And whenever I'm doing this, you can just see that somebody's running the URL and trying to do a SQL injection, but it's usually not working.
So it's all packaged up and Bro's there, Kibana's
there? Yeah, everything's there. Bro's in there. You can choose to do Suricata or Snort. Wireshark is on there that you can use to open the files. I can try to take a look at the GUI later. Since I'm remote right now, that is not really comfortable, but you could do that, yeah. I know of some installations where people are running like security onions on hundreds of devices to have a cheap network security monitoring solution. Sometimes even in front of the firewall, which from my point of view is kind of problematic because you see all the stupid stuff that hits your firewall and gets discarded. But security onion is like your zero cost network security monitoring solution. You only need the hardware, or in my case, I'm running it as a VM. Then it only costs me the space for the VM, right? So the good thing is you don't need to know how to install Snort, how to install Suricata, how to install Squirt, it doesn't matter. You just get the live CD, you boot it, you click install, and as soon as it's installed, you can start the setup button, and the setup will ask you, hey, which network card should I monitor on? Do you want to have Snort? Do you want to have Suricata? Do you want to have Bro? Do you want to have this, that? So it's like a graphical wizard that will guide you through all of it. And in the end, you have a system like this that you can use. And if I'm looking at the newer thing, that would be the Kibana. I don't know if it works. In the last version, it didn't work. Yeah, it's right now not working. There seems to be a little bit of a problem with it still, but I got it to work once, and then you have a much nicer GUI, and you can search in it with Elasticsearch and stuff. So that is actually quite nice. All right, so if anybody's interested in basically monitoring for patterns, Security Onion is an easy way to get there. Okay. On a side note, I'm active on ask.wireshark.org, which is our Q&A page, where people ask questions about Wireshark, about network analysis, about whatnot. Sometimes we get the question where people try to use Wireshark to find patterns in large amounts of packets, which is possible, but Wireshark is not the tool for that. Right? So if somebody is trying to find something specific in a large amount of packets, I usually recommend going for something like Snort, Suricata, or something else, and use a pattern detection machine like that to find the packets that you need, instead of trying it with display filters, which is just too slow. Yeah? That's another hint, and I probably, if I have time in the end, I will show you how to do that manually without Security Onion and run Snort against a fixed set of pcaps that I have on my disk. Yeah, that's also possible, even on Windows, which is kind of surprising, but even that works. Okay, so the one thing that you probably will need if you run something like this is somebody with security know-how who is able to go through all these messages and tell you, you can ignore this, you can ignore this, you can ignore this, you can ignore this. Because from my experience, and I do that a lot, about 99% of these hits are false positives. Yeah? And if you would go and say, well, I have so many problems right here, that's just not true. It's just that the rule detects stuff where people are trying things. And very often I hear people say, oh, we get attacked every day about 100,000 times. And if you ask them what they mean, they count every single port scan as an attack. And that's not an attack. That is just noise. Okay, so Sake?
Are there severities that make a distinction between just scanning and actual attacks?
Yeah, you can see a little by, this is all red here. no, not everything is red. There's this small box here that tells this is orange, this is yellow, this is red. So there's a severity in there, but it's not always something that you can really, well, I don't agree in all of the cases about the severity. Once again, it's something that is quite subjective, where somebody says, hey, this is really a problem for me, and others say, well, I don't care. Yeah, like, I mean, in this case, I think the IPv6 tunnel is a red one. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. The problem with disabling the rules is, by the way, if you do that in a big company and you're like, this rule can be disabled because it's not important, good luck finding somebody who's willing to sign off on that. Because I tried that. We had a case where we had ARP spoofing being detected. ARP spoofing meaning that a MAC address for an IP is changing. And it's very common in a high availability situation that you have multiple MAC addresses for a single IP. And we had that like, I don't know, 1 million times a day, like 1 million hits per day. And I said, well, let's disable that rule because we don't need it. But the problem is, upper management very often says, well, what if it is not a false positive once in the future? We won't detect it, right? Yeah, but okay.
Another thing you can do is to suppress the alarm for that specific network request.
Yeah, that.
The rule is the alarm to suppress it for that kind of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Might need the rule to detect
Yeah.
illegal traffic.
Yeah, that's a good hint. You can also not just disable the rule completely, but suppress it for a certain set of parameters. For example, you don't want to see it for a specific network range or something like that. But even that is kind of hard to do. I mean, in my company, I was personally, at the end, I was going to the managers and saying, I myself personally will vouch for this thing not to be bad anytime in the future. And they still wouldn't sign off on it. That's probably because I don't matter. But yeah, that's the way it is. We are fighting against the false positives quite a lot. Yeah, so that takes a lot of tuning. By the way, running a security thing like this, who has done that before? Who's run that kind of thing? Just a few people? Or are you all like, this is security topic, I'm not going to answer this? Who is not answering me because it's security relevant? Okay, that trick doesn't work either. Oh, it worked. I was at a presentation once where they had like all the CISOs and management security people, and they really got mad at me because I asked them who has an IPS, and they were like, we're not saying anything. And I said, nobody of you has an IPS. I go, what? Because even if you bought an IPS, you're not blocking anything. You're only running it in monitor mode. And everyone was like, he's right. Yeah, so that's the way it is. But as I was saying, if you have something like this running, it's quite nice to find problems in a network too. Because very often if you run a tool like that, you will find a lot of misconfigurations that it will show up as a security finding. And I had networks cleaned up quite a lot by running a security sensor like this because it was required. And the network administrators, basically, I was coming to his door for about a month every day and told him, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. And we were disabling all or reconfiguring and fixing all the problems that they had. And it got a lot better just by looking for security problems and then fixing the network problems in the wake of it. Okay, so if you want to try it, it's free. You can download it. You can install it in a VM. It will, I think, even detect if it's in a VM. If not, it's a Ubuntu Debian thing. I think it's Debian now. It used to be Ubuntu. You can just install the Open VM Tools package, and then it's running in the VM like as if the VMware tools would be installed. So that is actually quite nice. Any question to this kind of thing? To Security Onion? No, everybody's asleep already. Great. That was that one. Okay, now I have something where a colleague of mine said, you need to take a look at this, and I finally said, yeah, let's do that. I need to start a VM for that. Where is my VM? There it is. And that is called what was it called? It was called pcap analyzer for Splunk. Who knows what Splunk is? For me, if somebody says Splunk and we have it, it's like, okay, you got money, because Splunk is quite expensive, and it's, as far as I know, not open source and not free. It's kind of free because we can run a small instance that only takes in 500 megabytes of log lines per day, or log files per day. 500 megabytes of log per day sounds like an awful lot, but let me tell you, it's not. I don't know how much log lines we get at Airbus, but I know that 500 megabytes probably won't last a minute. I think we have one of the biggest installations of that by now, but I'm not sure. So let's just see if it's running. I installed it in a VM because I didn't want to put it on my laptop. And my laptop is apparently having some stress right now. Maybe it's still booting. Anyway, what it is doing is it is a plugin that you have to install for Splunk, and then you tell the plugin where the pcap files are, and the pcap files are pulled in and listed in the Splunk instance. We will check that out in a minute. So there it is. It's from a third party, but it's listed on the official Splunk website. So, yeah, you can get it there. Okay, Splunk Enterprise. So, if you install it, you will get this thing here to the left. If you click on it, it will give you a little introduction. What you have to do. Basically, it will tell you you need to put your pcap file somewhere, and there need to be a Wireshark T-Shark installation on the system, because they're using T-Shark to convert the pcap files into comma-separated values and push them into Splunk. If we're looking at the script that they're doing, or that this guy has done, he's basically checking out if I'm on Windows or if I'm in Linux, I'm using a batch file or a shell script, and then he's looking for asterisk or star.pcap in the path that you configure. I didn't tweak it yet, but it would be quite easy to make it read pcap-ng because it's T-Shark reading the stuff. The only thing that you need to do is fix the script and say star.pcap star instead of star.pcap, and it would read pcap-ng as well. Yeah? So in the end, what you have to do is you go to the settings of Splunk, and in the settings of Splunk there's something called data inputs. As soon as the plugin is installed, the data inputs will have an additional configuration for the source of the pcap files. That's somewhere down here already because I configured it. Pcap file location. And this is really not fast. Come on. And I put the to C:\trace. For me, the big question was, will it accept the Windows / thing, or do you need to put some Linux notation there? No, it works this way, but it only processes pcaps, of course, because it looks for only pcaps extension. You copy your pcap files into that folder, and every couple of minutes it will run T-Shark on them and convert them, and then they will disappear from that folder. Since I didn't want to wait for a couple of minutes standing here and trying to make something in the, or do something in the meantime, I just put a file in there before, so it should be in the Splunk already, and I will try to find it, but because it's from 2014, that is 4 years away in the past, Splunk is usually used for looking at recent stuff, like the last 15 minutes or so, and if you do that for the last 4 years, it will take a while. But it's as simple as that. Install the plugin, configure the path, and copy the pcap files into the path, and then you get the data from the pcap files into your Splunk instance. So let's see if that works. Come on, search and reporting. It doesn't do anything. Why not? Come on. Okay. Now we can search. Let's say a search for everything. Star, like this. I don't get anything, which is not surprising because it's set to the last 24 hours. The pcap file that I ingested is from 3 years ago, so I won't see it. And you can see that even if you use the other predefined things, it's like yesterday, previous week, business week, month, year, even that won't work because that's so far out of scope. What I did was select all time, and that is a bad thing. If you do that and your Splunk administrator finds out that you do this, he will probably kill you because the search head who's doing the search then will die out of having too much log lines. In the end, it looks like this. You get like, the values from a comma-separated string into your Splunk. I think the interesting thing here is since you can modify the script, you will see that they're using T-Shark and putting in the fields that they want with -T fields, -E, 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 and all the field names. If you need something more than that, just change the script and it will put all the additional fields into Splunk as well. That is quite modifiable. If you're running Splunk already, I think this could be an interesting thing to enhance your search capabilities so that you can search log lines and pcap details as well at the same time. If you're not having Gesundheit, if you're not having Splunk already, I don't see a big point of doing that. Yeah, so it's probably not a great idea to install Splunk just for this tool. It's a nice enhancement add-on that may be interesting for already existing Splunk installations, if you have enough license capabilities left, of course. Yeah, and you need to program and configure your own way to get the pcap files in there. So right now it's just reading pcap files from the directory. How they get there is your problem. Yeah, if you capture them somewhere else and transfer them, that's something you have to do. This is just picking up whatever it finds in that directory and is putting it into Splunk. Yeah, question?
If you're doing T-Shark analysis, then you can do things like retransmissions, HTTP transfers,
Yeah.
order, where you usually need to compare several packets, to get this information. But if you just do the conversion into CSV or JSON, then these fields will not be part of the information. Do you find some things like retransmissions or out of order in Splunk? Do you know this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the question is if I just put all the field values into Splunk, can I see some correlation stuff like retransmissions, delayed egg, or a previous segment lost, or no, it's now called previous segment not captured. I think so, because you can, if you want to, just put the info line in there and then you will have the expert symptoms as well. But still, I'm not really sure if that's the idea of this plugin. I think this is more like a hunting thing where if you're looking for security incidents, you want to see if you have packet traces that will tell you that, oh, my virus scanner told me there was an attack, but you're not sure if the attack worked or if it was blocked successfully by the virus scanner, and then you can check, is there a connection attempt, outgoing, incoming, whatever, at the same time coming from the pcaps. So that is one of the typical situations where we are interested in looking at pcap files, because if a virus scanner tells me this attack was successfully blocked, I'm like, that's what you say. But I want to see that it really didn't do anything afterwards. And for that, I would do that kind of thing, but not for troubleshooting things. That's just not really helpful, I think.
Many companies use Splunk also for performance stuff, and of course, correlation of performance information with performance information you can find in a trace.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so if you're having some pointers already that a connection is bad from log lines that you get, you could look at the traces that you have in Splunk and see if there's some expert notifications that this connection looks bad and stuff like this. Yeah. All right.
Did you compare it actually to Stream, to Splunk Stream?
No, I haven't compared it to Splunk Stream. It was basically because my colleague, who is a Splunk superhero, he said, hey, did you know, you're the pcap guy, did you know you can do this? It's like, no, I didn't know, but I will have a look at it. So that's why I put it in here. I didn't compare it to anything, and I'm not really a Splunk guy. So even now, I'm probably not sure what I could do here. You can click on things probably, and then stuff will happen. Yeah. It's an expensive toy to play with. So yeah. Okay, so I think I have the plugin on my desktop. I will freeze this one, just in case we need it again. I have the Splunk pcap analyzer plugin here on my desktop, this file. Let's just take a look at it. It's a tar GZ, so for Windows it's a little unusual. So let's extract it. And if we go in there, there's something called pcap CSV. No, that's not the one. Bin, I think, was it? Yeah. And then there's here 2 different pcap files for different versions of T-Shark, because there seems to be some change in parameters at some point. So if I'm opening this one, I think you can see here's the call, program files Wireshark T-Shark -R, which reads a file, and then T fields, which means output the fields that I'm giving you now, and it says frame time and I don't know, TCP stream, source IP, destination IP, protocol, that kind of stuff. So basically, if you want more of the pcap to end up in your Splunk, just modify the batch file. Yeah, so it's quite easily modifiable as long as you know how T-Shark works, and that is not really rocket science. It's just T fields and then -E for each of the fields that you want. Add them, and what I would do is also add like, where is it? Here, dir/b star.pcap, and I would put in another star like this, and now it will also accept pcap-ng files, yeah, because that's what it does. So it's quite easy to actually use it. You can see it's updated last in 2017, so it's kind of still being maintained, but you have to decide on your own if you think it's interesting or not. I just wanted to point it out that something like this exists and that you can use it and modify it if you want to. Okay, so now for my really opponent in this talk, and that is something called Moloch, or however it's pronounced. Hansang, what would you say? Moloch, okay. Moloch is a nightmare because you have to install Java for it. And it took me 3 days to get Java installed. I was basically Googling for how to install Java on Debian 9. And I got a lot of tutorials, like tutorials you wouldn't believe, but none of them worked. And I stopped doing that for a day, and I went back to it at some point. And finally I found one that worked. And now you know the reason why I wrote a blog post about it, because I found something that worked, and I want to help you if you want to install it to do the same thing. So basically, if you want to install Moloch, go to blogpacketfoo.com, and I just today put the article there so that you can see how to do that from the beginning. And all the lines are copy-pastable, so it should be easy to do that. And also, I was talking to Stephen from Endace, and he told me that if you compile it from source, that's better than running a Docker image, because, of course, at some point I was like, this stupid thing isn't working, let's get a Docker image, deploy it, and you just use it, and even that failed. But apart from that, Stephen told me that he submitted patches to the source code that Moloch is compiled from if you do it this way. And then it's supporting FPGA-based capture cards as well, which it otherwise won't. Yeah, so compiling it from source seems to be the way to go. if I tell you that my VM that I was going to use today broke today, and I had to completely reinstall it during the first 2 Hansang talks, that should tell you something about how stable this thing is, at least when I'm using it. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Yeah, so the VM broke completely, the interfaces weren't found anymore, you couldn't connect to it, you couldn't even log in anymore. So it was completely dead at the time. So I started from scratch, and I was glad I had the blog post, because I followed on blog post to be able to show it to you now. If it works, we will see. Okay, so it's probably just me. I mean, these guys are doing a great job of running it, so I have to log in for. I think you cannot read the screen, which is not a problem, because I will show you the important stuff later. I just need to find out which IP address I have right now, and it is the same as before, just making sure. Where's the resize button? There. Okay, let's use a normal shell for this. SSH 192.168.88.128. So there we are. Now I need to install Elasticsearch, which is the database engine behind it. Systemctl start elasticsearch.service. Great. Maybe I should go to root instead. Systemctl start elasticsearch.service. Yay. Okay. Moloch capture.service. That's the capture service. It's live capturing from one of the 2 network cards that you need to have. Apparently, it's not installable if you only have 1 network card, and if you want to use it like an inspection system, which you can totally do, like feeding it pre-recorded pcaps, but it won't be installable if it doesn't see 2 network cards. And then there's the Moloch viewer service, which is the actual front end that you're going to see. And I will open that one now, 192.168.88.128, port 8005. Then there's a login. And this is Moloch. So it doesn't look like much right now because there's nothing in there. This is running in a VM. It's not capturing anything, basically, so it's not showing you a lot. So what I have done is I have also installed a Moloch instance in my data center so that we have some live data. Just so that you can see that there's actually something happening here. So this is how it looks like if it's seeing live data. Okay? And, well, this is now from, I think, 3 o'clock, 10 minutes to 4 o'clock, so it's like the recent kind of thing right now. I'm not going to go into this data because this is live data from a production system, and that is kind of not so funny. What I'm going to do is I loaded 1 pcap into Moloch, a pre-recorded one from 2014, into this instance, and let's see if we can find it, right? So I'm going to edit the date here, and this date clicker is once again killing me because going back 4 years is no fun at all. So I'm just modifying the date that we have here. I can just advise you not doing this for data that old, just do it a little more up to date, and you can use the usual date clickers. Let's see, maybe this. Stop time cannot be before start time. What? Well, this is the, let's do it like this. 0101 from January to, let's say, December 31st. Search. There's no data. Why is there no data? Probably because I didn't put the pcap in there yet. I'm going to upload a pcap file, That's probably because I had to reinstall the whole thing, that it didn't have it anymore. Username, it's me. Okay, where were my demo files? Demo traces, demo suspects, file set. I think I converted a pcap file because also Moloch wants pcap files, not pcap-ng. Upload it. Should be here. There it is. Okay, now we have a tool in data /Moloch /bin /Moloch capture. That binary here is capable of ingesting pcap files. You can see it has two different parameters for that, -r to give it just one file, or -R to give it a whole directory of stuff. So right now I could use the lowercase because I just want to load one pcap file, put it in there. This is the parsing process, so now it will be put into Elasticsearch. And that will take a while. And as soon as that one is done, we can probably find it in the time range that I just configured. Come on. Probably needs a while until it gets there. Parse error, okay. Come on. If it doesn't work soon, I'm going to use the live data. Yay! Cool stuff. You can probably see people reading the blog now. It doesn't seem to want to go there, so let's go for the live one. What I can do here, for example, is say IP equals 81.209.179.74, which is the IP address of the blog hosting server. And these are all the TCP connections. You can see right away this is the name resolution. The good thing is if you're searching for something specific, and that is a typical use case for all of these tools that I showed you, they're not for clicking around in tons of data. You will get lost. But if you know that you're looking for something more or less specific, you can really easily navigate here. So I could just say, well, I want this as an additional parameter for my search bar up there. Let's just do that like this. And then trigger the search again. Yeah, so now we only get those where there is some blog.packetfoo.com information in here. You can open that TCP connection, then it will load the session detail. It will tell you about the TCP flags that it's seen, the TLS version that it's seen. If you have clear text stuff, you can even show images and files directly. So it's a little bit like the network miner. If I would have been able to do that on the old PCAPs, you would see that we can find like logos from the travel agencies and stuff like this that way.
On the top, Jasper, do you have to just switch to packets instead of sessions?
Yeah, that's just for the bar display here, telling you how many incoming, outgoing you have, data bytes. So sessions is very often the more interesting thing, especially if I want to know, hey, what's going on here? Why is that so high? And it will directly filter on that kind of thing. So you can drill down quite nicely. If it works, it's quite a useful tool. I mean, it's my own fault probably that it doesn't. And the other thing that I find nice is that you can go and click on download pcap and basically extract the stuff that you want directly into Wireshark. Excuse me. So it should open at some point.
So you're capturing the complete thing of your servers?
Yeah, full packet capture.
Is this GDPR compliant?
This is GDPR compliant in a way that everybody who's on that service knows about it. But yes, you're right. GDPR is a nightmare, and I had to change my blog for that kind of thing. So basically not go there. Let's not go there, please. I need to ask my brother, he's a lawyer, and I don't want to bother him with that kind of stuff. So you can see you can pull like the full flows from the capture. Usually I think Moloch is made for live capturing stuff and being able to search on it. The additional option of ingesting pcap files and showing the results from pre-saved pcaps, it's the same like all the other tools that I looked at, and that goes for the commercial tools as well. Very often things like that are made for live monitoring and pulling stuff from it, and you can feed it old stuff, but very often they're not really made for that kind of thing. So this is once again something that you can use to take a look at a big bulk of files if you have them, but they should be quite recent because otherwise you have to fiddle around with the date selector once again.
It's putting everything into Elasticsearch so you can...
Yeah. And it scales like hell because you can just build a huge Elasticsearch cluster. You can have multiple capture instances feeding it data and then build a huge pile of pcap related stuff in there. So it's very, very capable, but I'm just not savvy enough to do that. So my Linux skills are quite limited. I'm getting along installing this kind of thing apparently after a couple of days. I have no idea how Elasticsearch works. So I had one of my disks run full during the preparation phase. And when the disk ran full, which shouldn't happen because Moloch is supposed to keep 10% free and delete all pcaps at all times, which it didn't. It's just my luck probably. Well, when that happened, I broke the whole system. The Elasticsearch engine was damaged and not repairable, and I had to scrap the whole thing and reinstall it. And I hate that. So I'm probably the wrong guy to run something like this. I'm quite sure that there's Elasticsearch people who are like, this is quite simple to do, and I'm like, go ahead, do it for me, please. Yeah, but I'm just not capable of that kind of thing. All right, so it's a very nice system. For me, it is something that you put up as an additional capture system to look at live traffic in certain locations. For example, my brother at some point was complaining, of course, once again about email not being sent because I'm also running my own email server, and I was running Moloch at the time. I was quite capable of just entering the IP address of the email server, finding his session and telling him, yeah, but it got in and out of my server, so it's not my problem. Yeah, so for that it was quite useful because I had the pcaps. I could find it in less than a minute, I think, because I knew what I was looking for. And most of the tools here are, if you know what you're looking for, they are helping you dig through larger piles of packets. That's what they're made for. Okay, so if you want to install it, this right now locally is running on a 4 gigabyte VM, which is not really that big. It should be much bigger and faster. But if you want to mess with it, that kind of installation is just good enough. The only thing that doesn't seem to happen is I cannot copy the VM to you because that broke it when I took it here. I have no idea why. I think I blame systemd probably because they're doing crazy things inside. I don't know. It's just, it didn't work. Yeah, so if you want to install it, make snapshots. Snapshots are great. I didn't, and that was a problem probably. Okay, so I have 10 minutes left. In the end, well, play with Moloch and see what it does for you. The last thing that I want to show you is Trace Wrangler. Who has seen Trace Wrangler before, once again? A couple of you, all right. Well, the main purpose so far has been for Trace Wrangler to sanitize and anonymize files. That was what it was written for. I'm now using it also for throwing tons of pcaps files on it and have it show me what's in there. So if I run it, it's a Windows binary. I will add a ton of files just to show you that it works. These are 63 files and it's a total of 15 gigabytes. Each file is 250 megabytes in size. I have scanned them before. The first time you add the pcap files to Trace Wrangler, it will scan them for all the sessions and details in there. Since I've done that before, it will just add them and then reread the database and get all the details from the database, which is why it's quite fast doing that. But we still have to wait a couple of seconds, I think, because 63 files still takes a little while. This laptop is quite old too. It's 5 years old by now. If I do that at home on my workstation, this would be done in like a couple of seconds, like really fast. The biggest amount of data that I've processed with Trace Wrangler in one go was 600 gigabytes, looking for problems and stuff like that. That takes quite some time because you need to scan them first and then open them. And that is not the fastest thing in the world, but there's no hope of opening that kind of stuff in Wireshark anyway, so I was patient and did that. So now we have it. It's aggregating the information from all the files. So what it does, it looks like, do I have a certain TCP connection in more than one file, and just correlates them so that it knows where it starts and ends. And right now we have loaded 24 million frames and 15 gigabytes of data in here. And the fun thing now is that I can open the communication details, which is similar to the Wireshark statistics. And it takes a while because it has to load all the details, but you can see we have about 682,000 TCP connections in here. And they're all, if a TCP connection was found in more than one file, they will just be aggregated to a single one, and it will show you that it's seen in more than one file. You can sort all that stuff, so if you want to take a look at who has the most packets, I need to go back to the top, I think. This is the connection with the most packets. It has 25 megabytes. More interesting maybe is that it also calculates for TCP, it calculates the initial round trip time. And the initial round trip time is something you should have heard about by now. So if I sort for that, I can see where the handshake took quite a long time. And I think the record in here is a couple of seconds maybe. Where's the... it's 81 seconds for a handshake. If I want to know why that is taking so long, I double click on it and it will extract the packets I need. I put in a progress bar so I can see that it's still working, and then it will just open Wireshark and tell me as soon as the interfaces are loaded, I can take a look at it and see what's happened. So it's quite similar to the extraction in Moloch. You will see that here's a SYN-ACK, but the SYN-ACK is retransmitted. So if you are looking at how long it took until the whole handshake is complete, it's probably quite some time. So I don't know, where's the time? Where's my time column? I don't have a time column. Oh, let's rearrange the columns. Maybe it's somewhere to the right. There it is. Go. Okay, that can take a while. Well, you can see it's here's 40 seconds, for example, somewhere. So there's quite some delay in there. And extracting that with a single mouse click is quite useful. And what you can also do is do that on IP conversations. For example, if you're interested in two IPs talking to each other, let's say one that has quite some traffic going on, you can just double click here and it will get all the packets between those two IPs and show them in one single file so that you can check what these two are doing. I have added some counters here that will tell you that those two are talking in 1,557 flows with each other. It's basically like a big overview of all the pcaps that you have, right? Yeah.
Is there a possibility to use time range to do selection as well?
Doing a time range selection is something I haven't added yet, but that would be quite simple actually. So I would be able to do that, yeah. I put in some crazy stuff in the TCP thing because, I don't know, I work with TCP mostly, I don't know about you. So what I put in here is something that is called the highlight mode. The highlight mode is quite interesting because if you are in highlight mode, you can select any connection and it doesn't show anything. Great, maybe I broke it at some point. What's going on? Highlight mode is supposed to show you which connections start and stop from the beginning and the end of your connection. So basically I had a proxy problem talking to the proxy, and I wanted to know on the other end of the proxy which connections are making my primary connection wait so long. So this would highlight all the connections starting and ending between the first connection, the one that you clicked on, is started and ended. Apparently it doesn't work right now, so I probably broke it. Yeah, it was just to show me what is happening in between. Yeah, so whenever you click on a line, and if it works, it will show you all the things that were started and ending not grayed out. And then you can check which of the ones are the ones that takes your time away. But apparently I broke something, and that happens to me too. So, yeah. Then I added something on the TCP thing where it tells you about the status of the handshake. So if you have the handshake and the teardown, or if there's any kind of problem, it will also be color-coded. There was something here. Handshake and teardown after multi-SYN retry, so it sees multiple SYN packets until it finally works. So let's check out if that is really true.
So if you do the highlight mode, whatever you click on, during that duration, it shows you what sessions lived.
Yeah, exactly. So here you can see that there was a SYN, SYN-ACK, SYN, SYN-ACK. So basically this will analyze the handshake and tell you, this wasn't just 3 packets that you usually see, but this was some sort of problematic kind of thing. And the same thing for the teardown again. Yeah, so a little bit of pointers at packets. And I already told the story at another SharkFest before, but one time a customer told me to go look for problems in the pcaps for 1 week without any specifications what I was looking for. And I was using a trace Wrangler like the whole time to find stuff that took long, or where the handshake was strange and stuff like this. And you can easily find a lot of strange stuff with that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
When you do the highlight, can you change the radius to say, even though this started time 0, go back 250 or 300 milliseconds, or go forward?
No, but that would be another feature request. So the highlight mode could be expanded to include more than just those times.
You get a packet from Singapore.
Yeah. It was something I put in when I needed it for an analysis. Basically, I'm always open to feature requests. I'm not trying to do something that Wireshark does already, but I think for the multi-file feature, that is something where we are not going to go with Wireshark very soon. So right now I'm trying to be a pre-selection tool for Wireshark, which is like a microscope looking at packets. But if I'm digging through like hundreds of gigabytes, I need a tool to help me for that. And that's why I wrote Trace Wrangler, or at least the extraction thing. I can do much more than that. So, example, there's an extraction task where you can add filters and tell it which things you want. For example, when we get a set of files where we just want to look at ICMP, DNS, and Kerberos, for example, I could run a T-Shark script over all the files and get all the stuff out of there, but I can do something much easier. I can just put in a extraction task, and my time is up now, but I will just show you that for a final thing. Yeah. Stop. What I can do is I add a filter and say I want to have source or destination port, let's say 53 for DNS and UDP, which would mean give me everything that is DNS, no matter if it's UDP or TCP, and I label that DNS. Okay? So I have one filter that tells me get me the DNS stuff. I add another filter, and I say let's get, I don't know, Kerberos, for example. There's still a little problem with ICMP right now. That's why I'm not doing that at this time. And for last thing, let's say...
several ports, like boot B ports, 67, 68. You can find them?
67, 68, yeah, I think so. I'm not quite sure. I haven't done that in quite a while. So that would be DHCP, right?
Yeah.
Or boot P for some people. The expression doesn't show it correctly, but we'll see if it works. So the magic now is that I only want to run over the file set once and get the results in single files. I want one file for DNS, one for DHCP, and one for Kerberos. So what I do now is go to the output page and tell it to do exactly that. Give me filter label.pcap.ng. And the filter label is the thing that I put on the filter. So the DNS filter will be called DNS and so on. Okay, and now I have this task here ready, and it will run as soon as I tell it to run. Now I need to undo the zoom and go to the, where are my trace files? It can run in the background while I do this, while I search for them. Traces, demo, suspects, file set. No, it was the other one. Where did I put it? I put it in the large file set. Here. Extract it. And you can see it already found some DNS. So while it is running, we will see that there's more and more. It found a Kerberos packet. So we now need to wait until the whole process is run. And in the end, it will have one pcap file per protocol, in this case. I could also put IP addresses. I could port and IP address combinations. The extraction thing also can read alert log files from Snort and extract all the flows that you had to snort it on for you and label them according to the snort hit that it had. So I'm using that all the time because I don't want to run T-Shark over my whole file set 100 of times to get everything, because that will take much too long. I just configure one, I go to bed, I wake up in the morning, and I pull all my stuff from my hundreds of gigabytes, and I can look at them. So that's that's what I'm doing with this. Let's see, we still don't have some DHCP, which is not surprising because I think there's no DHCP in this thing. But I think I put in the comma-separated port numbers, so I can't remember. The trace Wrangler now has 220,000 lines of code, and I don't know. I have to look in the code to tell you if it works or not, to be honest. Okay, so I hope it was a little bit interesting for you. I have the slide deck that I will provide afterwards. In the end, go away. We have network miner. We have Snort Suricata, and I put the verdicts on here. It's useful for carving, security onion. It has all the tools in there. Snort Suricata, of course. pcap analyzer, Moloch, trace Wrangler, and I'm done. Sorry for no Q&A because I think the time is up, but I'm here for the rest of the SharkFest. I have 3 more talks, so I'm not going away. And if there's any questions, just come and see me, and we can talk about everything. If you have feature requests, if something doesn't work, if something breaks down with trace Wrangler, just let me know. And I hope it was kind of interesting. So please do a feedback thing and let me know if this one was a waste of time or not. Thank you.